gentlemen, or good afternoon, depending where you are in this crazy world. I'm just going to wait for the next 30 seconds just because there's a few people arriving in. Then I'll officially start this webinar. So if you can just stand tight for a few seconds more, and then we'll get moving. Okay, we'll do it. Good morning, good afternoon. In this beautiful world of where we are, I appreciate we've got a lot of time zones at the minute moving here, and we've all aligned over this beautiful thing called technology, right? So my name's Tom Wheat. I'm the country manager for the UK and also cover the whole of Europe for PJR. And long story short, if you don't know much about PJR, it's a huge international outfit. Our HQ is based in Michigan headquarters, and we've been around for 34 years. With a large client base, and we continue to drive and growing in the sector of 27001. Super excited today, super excited. The lady that's in the middle there is a lady called Bodil, who I'm going to introduce now, who is the CEO of Cyberjuice. And we've worked together for the majority of this year now with great opportunity that keeps opening up. But yeah, I'd like to introduce you first to Bodil. Bodil, if you give an introduction, that would be much appreciated.
Yes, thank you so much, Tom. Thanks for having me here. So my name is Bodil Biering, and I'm the CEO and founder of Cyberjuice, where we help startups and SMEs when they need to get certified with the ISO standard or get ready with NIS2 or some other security framework. So we're a software company, and the way we work is we have a platform that helps you with everything you need for documentation, like policies, risk assessment, all that, we make it super easy. And we also upskill the team at the same time. So even if you've never done this before and you have no compliance expert on your team, we can train your team to do this on their own. So you don't need any consultants, and we'll give you a compliance coach dedicated to help upskill your team while you use our software to get ready. And then once we get you ready, which we'll do pretty fast, actually we've seen it as fast as a couple of weeks, then we introduce you to Tom and his amazing team, and they get you audited and certified in, for example, ISO 27001, which we'll talk about here today. So I usually compare this to taking your driver's license. So you go to the driving school, but then when you need to go to your test, your exam, and get your actual license, you have to go to the authorities. In Denmark, it's actually the police doing that. So we're the driving school, and Tom can issue the license.
I like it, Bodil. That's a great analogy. And I think what's key for the room today is a case of it's going to be a really informal webinar. There's great opportunity. If you look at the Q&A at the top, any questions you have throughout this webinar, please ask. And ultimately, we'll cover them at the end. And it gives a great opportunity to basically see from someone as a platform provider for 27001 specifically, and a UCAS certification body to answer the question. But what we're going to talk about today is the webinar ISO 27001 myth busting. And I think, well, there's a lot of myths. I'm going to let Bodil lead on this. But I think what it will give you a key insight in is a case of not only the consulting and more importantly, the software provider, but also the certification side. So Bodil, please lead, and we'll get some informal chat.
Yes, so I'm really excited that I can ask you these questions because I get them all the time from our customers that want to get certified. So first of all, they are all very confused and scared, and they have no idea what to expect. So can you just give us a short walkthrough of what does it really look like, the journey from, you have your policies ready, how do you actually pass an audit? What are the stages about, and what happens at the audit?
Yeah, there's a lot of stages, and I think obviously when clients come to us at the end of PJR, we are ready to give them that happy home, that safe place. And more importantly, our role and responsibility is coming with a fresh pair of eyes to ensure you're compliant. The thing with ISO 27001 is it's quite daunting for a lot of companies. Therefore, the majority of organizations have a lot of stuff in place. The beauty and skill of ISO is gluing all that information together and making it readily accessible for the rest of the team. But when it comes to us, people always think that, when they do your platform with you, Bodil, in a case of we're all ready, where do we go now? They forget about the certification part. And the certification part is one of the most important steps because the majority of people do ISO 27001, one for the supply chain, And two, because for tender opportunities, you have to have it. You have to be compliant. So when you come to us, it's a real simple journey. And the first myth busting we're going to do, Bodil, is that you cannot have a certificate for just a year. Okay. I'm sure you've had that question a million times, but Bodil, can't we just be certified for a year? The answer is no. Okay. And the reason for that is the blue vein of ISO is about continual improvement. So every year you have to demonstrate this continual improvement moving forward. And the first thing you do for your audit with PJR for 27001 is something called a stage 1. So what the heck's a stage 1? Stage 1 is really simple. It's a documentation review. That's where we check all your documents in place to include your internal audits, management review, and that you're ready to go to stage 2. Okay, so stage 1, simple analogy, we've talked it. Okay, we've talked it that we can do it. We recommend no more than 2 to 4 weeks in between. Then we start something called stage 2. Stage 2 is an in more depth check to ensure that what you've written and put in place actually works. So, Bodil, stage 1, we've talked it. Stage 2 demonstrates how you walk it. Once you complete stage 2, which is really important for clients, is they think that they get the certificate on the last day. Next myth busting, Bodil, we're going to do this a lot for this webinar, is that is not true. Okay, what we have to do is something called TC technical review. And in the UK specifically, that takes up to 7 days. That's where an auditor who's not part of the audit checks all the information and goes, these are ready for certification.
So there's an audit of the audit as well.
Audit of the audit, Bodil. So we double eye check this, which is really key. So there's no biased view. We ensure we've got everything in place. What we both like to do, Bodil, which you'll smile about, is then once we get the certificate, we have wine, tea, medals, all the things, great food that comes with it. And yeah, you can celebrate your hard work that you've done. But the day after, Bodil, guess what? The journey's just begun. Because what you have to do now is show continual improvement. So 12 months later in a rolling program, we come back in and we do something called annual surveillance 1. Real short audit, Bodil, make sure you're still on the management system, you're still improving, you've still got your finger on the pulse. I think we know how this is going. 12 months later, we come back in and we do something called annual surveillance 2. Very similar audit, but ensuring you're continually improving in that cycle. In a nutshell, when you come to PJR with a UCAS certification, your certificate is in a 3-year window. Once you do the 3 years, Bodil, smile with me again like we always do. We start again at year 4, but instead of doing stage 1 and stage 2, we do a recertification audit. So any questions on that, Bodil? Does that make sense, or is that clear enough for the group?
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear. So it's a 3-year cycle, and you have 2 stages in the first year, and the second year. Do you also have 2 stages when you come in the second year for the checkup?
No. So what we do as a case of is we only come once. There is an option which is very rare where you can have an annual surveillance audit. That means we come in every 6 months. It's not very popular because you'll smile with me. People want the auditing body coming in once and once only. But the beauty regarding our PJR is we come in, which is specifically, which we'll talk about virtually at the minute, to build trust and rapport. Because the minute we build that, we come in to add value to your system. So year 1, 2 audits. Year 2, 1 audit. Year 3, 1 audit.
Okay. Well, I think that's pretty clear. So, and you build like a relationship with your auditor. It's the same person that comes, or is it random?
Great question. So yes, what we try to do is keep continuity. And the reason for that is the last thing you want to do is explain to an auditor every single year how your business runs, how it's set up, etc. We normally flip auditors off due to accreditation requirements every 3 years. And that's to ensure we don't get that biased view and auditors get comfortable. Okay. Because as I said before, what's key for us is to add value with a fresh eye check. For an answer to your question, for that first 3 years, yes. And the reason for that is when the auditor comes back in, it saves a lot of time, it builds trust and it builds rapport.
It makes a lot of sense. Let's move on to the next question.
No,
do we need to meet every single ISO 27001 requirement to pass? Like a lot of people think it's a checklist.
Yep, I hear. And the problem with regards to organizations when it comes to 27001 is everyone just thinks it's a checklist from A to Z. And that's not realistic, because what happens in organizations, everyone's different. Every organization is set up different, and some organizations have multiple companies under one umbrella. So an answer to the question is, let's myth bust first that ISO is not a tick box exercise. It's not a templated exercise where you just fill it in and you pass. The way I describe ISO 27001, 9001, whatever it is, it doesn't matter because they all come from the same blueprints of subclause 4 to 10. Is in the UK specifically, we have something called substitute teachers. So if the real teacher's not in, they have supply teachers that come in to back up. And they pick up a lesson plan, and no matter what teacher it is, they can deliver that class. ISO is about anyone in your organization can pick up this plan, this management system, and run the business effectively. That's what it's about. Because what you'll notice the case of is with ISO is that people with 27001 specifically think it's just that IT department. Another big myth, okay? Yeah. A common question we'll get in regards to this, obviously, requirement to pass is, who do we include in scope? And what scope means is, in reality, the answer we give in short is anyone who's got a log on to a computer and a password is in scope for 27001.
Yeah, so it's usually the whole organization.
Correct. I mean, you can exclude scopes and make it as niche as you want, but the generic approach across the board with the brush is, if you've got a login and you've got a password, you're in scope, unless you exclude from scope. So that's a real common question. And why we come to this, do we meet every single requirement to pass? So you'll get this often in the case of us, and this is really important for you to know from a certification point of view. In theory, we need 3 months of evidence before we can come in to carry out a third-party assessment. What does evidence mean? Okay, evidence means, do we need every single piece of ISO 27 requirement to pass? No. What you have to do is demonstrate that you've got procedures in place that if things were to go wrong and to get breached, that you could deal with it, if that makes sense. So we don't want an organization coming to us and having all these faults and all these cyber attacks and all these breaches just to prove that their systems work. It's not about that. What ISO is about is, if something was to happen tomorrow, and from a third-party auditing body like us, we have to prove and provide evidence that if it was to happen, you've got the measures in place, if that makes sense. Now, there's key documentation within ISO that you have to do compulsory. One being internal audits, one being management review. Okay, these two specifically have to be carried out within a 12-month rolling window. And the reason for that is a case of, is for people in the room, which I'm sure the knowledge is in here, if you're doing an internal audit, that is your last safety net before we come in as a third party. If that makes sense.
It's also part of your continual improvement, right?
Correct.
This is where you see where you can do better.
Yeah. And then I think why we talk about internal audits and management review, this is from experience from the volume of clients we've got. A lot of people implement ISO internally within the workforce, which is amazing because they've got the resource and because of cost. What I personally recommend as a minimum what organizations should be doing is having their internal audits and management review done by an external provider. And the reason for that is it's fresh eyes, it catches anything before we come in, and more importantly, it strengthens the system. I've been in many.
So an internal audit by an external party.
The irony, can you believe it? Yeah.
That's a little bit ironic. Yes.
Yeah, and I'm not undervaluing the value of someone doing it internally. That works. Therefore, when there's fresh eyes, it's not about the person carrying out the audit. But when someone's familiar with a person within the organization, it's just blasé. When it's someone who comes in, like, for example, you, Bodil, in the case of comes in, people seem to stand to attention, pay attention, and perform. So it's very common that when we come to stage 1 at PJR, we expect internal audits and management reviews to be done. If they're not done, what we do is something we raise something called a concern. Because at stage 1, you can't raise a non-conformity of a minor or a major. What does a concern mean? A concern means that the minute we open up on stage 2 and come to the obviously second part of the audit, if the client can't provide internal audits and management review, we instantly raise a major. Okay, so in answer to the question, do we need to meet every single ISO 27000 requirement to pass? Explain the risk-based approach and fit for purpose. In theory, yes, we have to have all the documentation, but what we don't need to do is have an example of where it's gone wrong to prove that you're competent if it was to go wrong, if that makes sense, Bodil. Does that make sense? Because clients.
Oh, you mean in terms of a breach, for example?
Correct. So, you might have a correction action log whereby, you need to contain something to ensure it doesn't grow. Well, in that 3-month period, you may not have that opportunity that presents itself. But as long as you can show the process and demonstrate how you would, that's all we need to see. All I'm trying to get a point here as a case office with documentation is we don't want companies creating problems just because they think the third-party certification body, i.e. PJR, need to see that. That is not
right.
true.
So to have evidence that you can handle an incident, for example.
Correct.
But
yeah.
what if we take it a little bit more of a concrete example here? Someone might ask, I've had this question come up actually, do we have to have antivirus on our computers? Or can we say, because it's risk-based approach, that we don't think it's necessary? What would an auditor say to this?
Correct. The beauty of an auditor is a case of this. All the auditor needs is justification. So what that means is, on the example you just used, whereby we don't use this because of this reason, that's fine. It's no issue at all. The problem with ISO and the fear of 27001 is people think it covers the organization and red tape, as we call it in the UK. It creates hurdles, it creates boundaries. 27001 was never designed for that, and it's never the blueprint principle for that. What it's about is adding you and basically adapting to your organization. And the skill that I've seen with your platform and specific Bodil with Cyberjuice is that's what it does. It doesn't create hurdles. It goes, okay, put all your stuff in, and then we'll adapt that to the standard. That's what's key. So in answer to your question that you said on the example you used is, there's not an issue for that, as long as they can provide and explain why they haven't done that approach to the auditor. The auditor doesn't come in, for example, and go, you must use this AOWS program, you must use this firewall, you must use this. That's not what it's about. What it's about is more importantly ensuring you adhere to the standard from the subclauses 4 to 10, and what evidence you provide and whatever systems you want to use in your organization, that's fine. There's no blueprint that says you must use these GRC tools, so on and so forth. So the risk-based approach, as we call it in the grounded approach, and that's what's key in regards to the skill of the auditors, is that's what add value they add. Because all hours have been on the street for a long time, if that makes sense, Bodil. So yeah, it's about understanding what the organization does, and more importantly, is it safe?
Yeah. So the justification has to convince the auditor.
Yeah, I don't think it's convinced. I don't know if convince is right. I think if you just the justification, you just have to provide evidence that the reason we don't do that is because of this, and that's fine. So that's all that it's about, because the auditor may go, okay, then well, how can you demonstrate and prove that you do this? And they might show a way that no one's ever seen before. Therefore, if there's logic behind it and it works, then that's fine. That's totally fine.
It really comes down to common sense, and can you justify what you do and why it's safe to do so?
Well, beautifully summarized, exactly that. And the common sense approach is the key. And unfortunately, with 27, that's where people get fearful, because they think they have to change the jargon to match the standard, and that is not
exactly.
That's not what it's about. What it's about, the case of it is, have you got everything set to protect you in your organization?
Yeah. Okay. But it can look a bit scary when you open a standard and see all those words, right?
No. And yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
This is where we also help.
Yeah, when I first saw ISO, I don't know if anyone's seen the film The Matrix with all them letters that come down the screen, but I just thought, what even is this? So it can be scary, but I tell you one thing with organizations is, if you have something called a gap analysis and see where your gaps are, you'll be amazed how much documentation you've already got in place that fits towards 27001. And as I said at the start of this, the art is, and where you come in to help and assist with that, is gluing it together to put it in one centralized management system. That's the skill. Exactly.
We mostly just come in and describe what they already have. Correct. What I see, or help them describe it in simple terms. So it's also understandable for an auditor.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the next one, shall we?
Please.
So this is a affordability question. Can small teams even afford an ISO 27001? And I thought this was especially interesting to ask for you, Tom, because you do remote audits in your team. And what I've seen, from an affordability point of view, is that it basically makes it 40 to 50% less expensive.
Agreed. And I think, I know we mentioned at the start, the old point of this, which was the key core of this, was the Nordic region. And as you know, obviously, if people don't know that, obviously, Bodil's from Copenhagen and Denmark, that's where she's positioned and based. And when we bridged this conversation was about regarding cost, how we carry out these audits, and more importantly, the time scale to wait together. And that's how me and Bodil got together. And can small teams even afford ISO 27001? It still makes me smile. I reckon we must have a minimum of 200 clients that have got less than 5 people that have got ISO 27001.
200 clients that are less
Minimum.
than 5 people.
Minimum, okay?
Wow.
So to set the benchmarks, a case of is 27001 in some people's eyes is about enterprise and blue chip. No one thinks about the SMEs that sit at the bottom. And more importantly, the reason why SMEs avoid it is because of cost. And cost is key. And in a key part of, we do the majority of our 27001 audits virtual. Why do we do that? Our accreditation request is that if people work remotely from home, it gives us an option then to carry out the audit virtually. That's how it works, okay? So we don't just do it. We have to go through an accreditation perspective to justify why we do it. And by doing that approach, as a case of is the day rate massively reduces because there's no expenses. And if we talk about the Nordics in specifically, rather than flying people in and paying hotels and paying taxes and travels, it just doesn't become affordable. It becomes very attractive and affordable the minute you do it virtually. And more importantly, when we carry it out virtually, we carry it out on the time zone of where the client is. Okay. So can small teams afford ISO 27001? 100%. And if there's anyone in the group who's on the webinar specifically who has been quoted anywhere in the world, I think it'd be interesting to get a comparable quote. And the reason for a comparable quote is a case of is one, you know, having the wool pull over your eyes. And two, as a case of is the extra benefits we can add that comes with it. So, Bodil, this is a great question. It's a great question. And I know in the Nordics specifically, when you told me some of the prices and hurdles you were facing, it made my eyes water. It seemed to be unjustifiable that sit within there. And we've got a lot of Nordic clients now that are extremely happy. And the reason they're happy is quite simply the way it's carried out, because when we do a virtual audit, for example, is we obviously get in touch a week or two before. The auditor gives you an audit schedule. We don't come in blind, so you can see exactly what's happening. And we host on Teams, Google, whatever your preferred channel is, and the auditor will open up with a meeting. They'll introduce themselves just like me, and they'll close out. And they do exactly the same for stage 2. So anyone in the forum who's sitting here now thinking about price and worried about price, I suppose it's all right me talking it. I think it's important for you to take the next step and get a free obligation quote. And the reason for that is I think they'd be extremely surprised, correct me if I'm wrong, Bodil, from your experience with the clients we've done, and that it's very affordable if we talk about the Nordic specific. Yeah,
definitely. We got a lot of people interested when they heard about the remote audits and that we could reduce the cost. It became a lot more within reach of a budget of a small team, for sure. So
yeah. It's very much a case of, you know, the price is sensitive for everyone. It really is. It's sensitive, and I suppose it's about getting value for money. And the other thing, just to cover here specifically for the small businesses, is normally the reason that they need ISOs because the supply chain or tendering says they need it. And as you know, Bodil, the beauty with going to a certification body, i.e. PJR, is we give something called a pending letter of certification. And what a pending
that's very popular.
The pending letter certification, for people in the room, what does that mean? It's basically an official letterhead from PJR with a UCAS stamp on that says that you are formally booked in for your audit. You can submit that to your supply chain, your tender, whoever's requiring the certificate. And what will happen the minute you submit it is they'll start to go very quiet and leave you alone. It then gives you a chance to build your management system. And the minute you get your certificate, you swap out the letter and you put the certificate in. And I think, you know, Bodil, from first hand, it's gone down really well and it's an extremely helpful tool.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I also know that it's very easy to get a quote from you.
Yeah.
I think it's like within 24 hours or something like that. Is that true?
We have a real tight gate here. So what we normally do is we don't send out application forms. I'm sure people will smile in the room. We don't do it. We jump on a Teams call with the client. We build trust. We build rapport. We put a face behind the name, and we fill in the form. And at the minute, we're turning quotes around within 2 hours. So that 2 hours is in front of you, and then it's there in front of you. There's nothing where I don't want filling application forms. You don't, Bodil. Clients don't want to. So we don't expect you to do it. So we just answer the questions during the call. We curve a lot of anxiety of audits. I despise the word audit. I despise the word assessment. We got scarred from them from school, right? But unfortunately, that's what the name is. And it breaks down barriers. So in answer to your question, quotes within 2 hours, wherever you are in the world.
It's very easy, so don't be shy. Okay, let's go to the next question then. So this one is interesting, right? It's also a bit of a myth that it's all bureaucracy and paperwork, and I mean, is that really what it is? How do you see that?
I mean, I'm going to ask you on this as well when I answer back, because you're also deep inside of this from the platform point of view. But is the whole thing about paperwork? No. Everyone in this room, I'm confident to say, doesn't like paperwork. And the minute you add more paperwork onto the desk, the more it doesn't get the respect and it gets dropped off the table. There's a lot of practical stuff that comes with ISO. There's a lot of physical controls. Now, if we talk about physical, the simple thing, if you use a door pass to get into obviously your office, if you've got data centers, depending how big your organization is, this is not all about paperwork. Is the paperwork, Bodil? We know there's paperwork, okay? There's nothing in life where there's no paperwork, okay? We have to fill in paperwork. But what this is about is a case of is the key thing to me to echo that isn't paperwork straight away is the culture of the organization. And if the culture of the organization is not right in regards to, that means the CEO coming down, then you're in real trouble. And that's nothing to do with paperwork, but subclause 5 of the standard specifically about leadership and management. And the leadership and management is absolutely key in regards to how the organization takes this. Unfortunately, there's scenarios within organizations that just go, okay, we need 27,001 now, get it in. And there's others who actually live and breathe it. So for me, it's not about paperwork. Yeah, there's part of it, but what's your experience on it? What's your view from your side of the fence?
Yeah, I love this question actually, because I mean, it's true. There are a few things that are mandatory to document. Like you need to be able to prove you did a management review meeting, so you need to have a little piece of paper with the decision minutes from that meeting and some slides, something. But it's actually very little that you have to have. And I usually tell people, well, when they ask, should we document this process or procedure? I say, the people that are doing it, do they need the document? Is it helpful in their work? Because it really is about carrying out the processes, and are they actually working in reality, in real life? So you should not document for the sake of the auditor. You should document to make your life easier in the organization. That's my opinion on documentation. And then we have those few pieces that we need records of, like that we did the training, that we did the management review and the internal audit. So there are a few things. And then I totally agree with you that if the CEO or the top management is not fully behind this, if they don't understand their role, it never works out. It just never flies. If you have a CEO ignoring when you're talking, or looking out the window whenever you're talking about security, the rest of the team has permission to also look out the window in that instance, right? So that's just how the culture happens. They look to the CEO or the top management, and that's just the reality of it. So
I agree.
So I always tell people this, and if you don't have the top management behind, then you're not going to succeed.
Agreed. And the thing with, I think this is key for the, I'm sure it's a mixed audience. We could have clients, we could have consultants, fellow auditors on this call. But I think what's key is, a key part of stage 2 is the auditor in theory on most scenarios will want to talk to the CEO. And you'll be amazed how many times they talk to the CEO and they can't even say 27,001 in the right order. So it goes to show that they haven't got a clue, and it's okay in task and business to delegate down to, a compliance manager to enforce 27,001. But at the same time is the culture has to be led from the top. And again, if they aren't taking it serious and it's just a tick box exercise and they just want a certificate on the wall, which unfortunately is very common within the industry, it's a tough ride and tough road. But, it's the whole thing about paperwork. No, for them, I'm not going to go into the standard too deep, but these mandatory documents that you have to provide, must they, all the stuff that sits in there. And you have to provide them documentations, but it's not about building an absolute catalogue of paperwork. And the reason people sometimes do that is because they think that's what we, as a certification body, want to see. And that's not the reality. We want quality, not quantity.
Yes, exactly. You want what you need to actually have a system that works for you.
Correct. Agreed. Then the system's got to work for you. So it's not all about 27,001. 27,001 gives you the parameters. So it's key about knowing that this is the biggest thing that organizations fall into, that they think they've got to change their business to suit 27,001. That is incorrect. Totally incorrect. You've just got to mold yourself within them parameter gates. It's really important for businesses.
Yeah. And talk about documentation. It's also one of my favorite topics to talk about, that, you know, just producing a pile of documents you can do very fast, and then you can put them in the drawer, and we call it a paper tiger sometimes, right? It doesn't change anything. If you just, I mean, one person can do this in one day, or even faster now with AI, you can just produce document, no one ever reads it. So what's that going to help? So something we really talk a lot about in Cyberjuice is how we make the policies live in the organization. How do we actually get people to understand what are the behaviors they need to have in order to actually make this come alive? So that's something we do with our platform, measure on the whole organization, and help with that behavior change and implement the habits that are needed.
Agreed.
So we do habit quizzes and habit surveys.
Yeah, agreed. Couldn't agree more.
So, okay, so not just bureaucracy. So so now we're certified. So what happens afterwards? You covered this a little bit already, Tom, that you come back once a year.
Yeah, I think this is really important now. It really, really is important, because I think what's important for the audience to know is there's two worlds out there. There's an unaccredited world and an accredited world. Okay, what the heck does that mean? It means that, you know, if it's unaccredited, it's obviously got no accreditation. An accreditation, for example, is multiple bodies in the world that do that. It's under the IAF umbrella, but we won't go into that too depth. But when you do an accredited version, i.e. it's got UCAS on, ANAB, for example, that sits in there. Every country's got its own local accreditation. It becomes accredited. And the minute it becomes accredited, that's when we fall into that 3-year window that we talked about at the start. So once certification is done and we passed, as you can see by the picture, fuss pumps, high fives, cakes, whatever you want to do. Therefore, your journey's just begun. And I don't know of many organizations in the time I've been in this role that when they have ISO 27001 that have doubled in size from that 3-year window. That is extremely common where organizations double. Why do they double? Because ultimately, in the same time, it is more opportunity for tendering. And once you fulfill the supply chain, it opens up more networks and avenues. But the minute you get your certificate, you're good to go. And at PJR, you'll smile with me here. It's not just about a certificate. You get a plaque that's engraved that goes to the wall. You've worked hard for it. Put it in the office. If you don't have an office, put it in the top drawer. Whatever works for you. Whatever works for you, Bodil. But you get the plaque, you get the certificates, and more importantly, we also do something called a backlinking program. And the backlinking program is where we link our websites together, which also pulls your ratings up on Google because you're also UCAS accredited. So it's really powerful what happens.
Oh,
but point two is key.
Oh, just a question there. I mean, so I didn't know this. So you get a ton of free marketing. I mean, besides a business opportunity and having the certification, you can use that to talk to your customers and partners. You actually get direct benefit on Google as well via your website. Okay.
Yeah, so we improved that. We also do something called Spotlight. And Spotlight's a position whereby we obviously, if an organization's interested, we do an article on them. We can even do film, and we promote them internally within our newsletter. So all our accredited clients have got their own sort of email chain, if that makes sense. So we also promote businesses internally who come to PJR for certification. And clients have also referred, there are a lot of businesses generated internally because they know all them companies have got the same accreditation as them, which is key. So there's a lot of things that go on. So when you get your certificate, there's a lot more things that happen in the background, and we open a lot more doors for you, because ultimately, once you get 27,001, you'll smile. You'll be working with clients that you're working alongside that also need 27,001. So
of course, because sometimes it's a criteria to even get chosen as a possibility.
Yeah, you've got, you know, it's like vetting your supply chain, a case of it. And what happens is that, you know, you'll start becoming au fait and only working with people who also share ISO standards. Not in every scenario, but it's very common. That's what happens. But yeah, the certification, it's not just a certificate. You get a lot more stuff with this, as explained. And then number 2 is the key part. It's the reoccurring maintenance mindset, ongoing value, i.e., the documentation we talked about in the top drawer, which sometimes happens. It doesn't go in there and gets dusted off 11 months later, 3 weeks and 4 days. It doesn't work like that. It's a living and breathing system, document, process. So, and the reason for that is, again, is this is not just about certificate of contract. This is about protecting your business, you know, from the most easiest observation we can give from a cyber attack, because the majority of cyber attacks, if it's through, you know, and it gets your organization, normally finishes most off because of the size of the bill. So this is, I know we keep talking about certificates, and it is about a certificate, unfortunately, for most people, but it gives a lot more value than that. But yeah. Really short, Bodil, to recap this. You get your certificate. Ongoing maintenance is a must. Continual improvement is key for ISO.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting what you said about companies tend to double in size after they get certified. So I'm thinking a few things here. So obviously what you shared about the marketing, you know, that you can now say you're certified, and that you get higher up in Google via your website. Maybe also your processes are more streamlined, so it's easier to actually scale out your team, get more people in, and actually have the team working more efficiently, and that helps scaling the business as well. But one thing I'm really curious about is then how important is it to choose which auditor you choose? Because if your website generates all these benefits, I mean, that might not be the same with another auditor necessarily.
Yeah, great question, Bodil. So what happens is the terminology is called scope, and what scope means ultimately is, let's make this really simple, what your organization does in a sentence. Okay. Once you do that, you do something called, go into a bracket called an EA code. Okay. And there's a range of EA codes that sit there at industry specific. So if we talk about a SaaS model, or we talk about a banking model, or we talk about, you know, them certain codes, the minute you go in the EA codes, our auditors specialize in certain EA codes. So, for example, there's no point singing someone into, you know, that does a SaaS model organization that basically, when we bring an auditor that does banking, it just doesn't work. Okay. So the reason that we get such feedback and we get such rapport, because I'm proud to say this in all due respect, the average client retention at Perry Johnson registrars is 26 years. That means when a client comes to us, they never go away. And the reason they don't go away is because the auditor is the add value and skill that they're adding. They know the business, the customer service, the ongoing support, the options and gateways that we open up to the bigger circle. Because what we want to do with our clients is we want to make them grow. We want to help them move and scale up and go with it. So it's, again, I keep coming back to this thing, which is my philosophy in life. It's not just a certificate. There's so much more to 27001 than the certificate.
Yeah. I'm laughing when you say average lifetime 26 years.
26 years.
For a customer, because in the world where I spend most of my time with the startups, most companies are not even 10 years old. Or even 5. So it's just amazing to hear that. Yeah. Okay. Well, those are some really interesting topics here. Let's see. I think this might be the last question before the Q&A. So we hear a lot about fast track. If you Google ISO 27001, you're going to see a whole page of advertisements with how fast this can get done. So what's the reality? How fast can we get certified if we already have good practices?
This is a great question. And I'm sure everyone in this webinar is initially going to be either guilty of it, seen it, or smiled at it. It's marketing.
Wanting it.
Yeah, it's marketing genius, because at the same time is, in the world of compliance for 27001 specifically, compliance managers are getting younger. And because they're getting younger, they're ultimately getting lazier. And that means they want everything at the flick of a switch. So, again, we come back to this regards to the problem with ISO in some ways is we have a motto above our office doors, Bodil, that says last Friday. It says as clear a day and big writing that says last Friday. Why does it say last? It says last Friday, as in last Friday. Okay. Why does it say that? Every client that rings us in the office will say, when do you need certification by? They'll say last Friday. Okay. So we come down to this. And the reason they need it is because of pressure, all the rest of it, tenders, etc. How fast can we get certified if our security practice is already strong? The answer is we need a minimum of 3 months before we can come in. Now, what is 3 months of evidence? The minute you put a date on a document, the clock starts. Okay, that's the simplest way to put it. Okay, so if you've had documents in forever and you're ready to go and you come tomorrow, then you can get certified. Now, when it comes to providers through consultancy and SaaS platforms that say we can get you certified in a day, a week or two, caution. Okay, it's fine if they've got stuff in place, but if they're brand new and got nothing in place, it's not reasonable, because you know, I'm sure some consultants will argue all day, and I'm not going to go into that debate and democracy and say we can do it. Maybe you can. Therefore, we can't do our bit until 3 months later. And to be honest, the reason that clients are only doing ISO is because they need the certificate. So the point is here to stop the myth musting. We can't come in until we've got 3 months of evidence. 3 months of evidence means the minute a date goes on a document, that's when the clock starts. So I hope that answers the question, but without going down a rabbit hole on this one, because it's very controversial. There's a lot of people offering products that can be done in a day, ISO in a box. I'm not going to judge or comment on any of them. It's nothing to do with me. Therefore, to get the certificate into a client's hands, the bit I can answer is the 3 months plus the week for the technical review, and the certificate will be in the client's hand.
Okay, so if you have that 3 months documentation, then you would be able to get the certificate part in just a week?
Yeah, well, the thing is if the stage 1 and stage 2, you know, we can't go in until after 3 months. Okay, so what that means is if a client comes to us and said we need certification, I'll go, okay, are you implement it yourself? Is it through a consultant? Is it your, all these questions? And the norm is a case of is we've got a consultant in. Okay, grant. So the consultant, as you know, you wouldn't, as a SaaS provider platform, wouldn't put a client forward for recommendation or certification unless they were ready, right? That's part of your role. But then the question normally asked the case of is can most ISO 27s be implemented from day one that are brand new to 3 months? 100%. 100% of the time it can be done, no matter the size of the organization, depending towards the resource you're going to put towards it. But yeah, but we can't come in our bit. For example, they can't, for example, if they use Cyberjuice now and they've been on your system for 2 days, we can't come in on day 3. It doesn't work. It doesn't work like that. So rule of thumb, 3 months, we're ready to go.
Yeah. And then you do the stage 1 and the stage 2.
Correct, Bodil. Exactly that.
Okay, so let's have a look at these short ones, rapid ones. So see if we can get a 1 sentence response or 2 maybe.
Go.
Is stage 1 just a warm up?
No, couldn't be further from the truth. Stage 1 is basically a documentation review to ensure you're ready for your stage 2.
Okay. Do we need fancy tools and a full-time CISO or compliance officer?
No. Again, every organization is different. Therefore, there's that many providers out there now that can support you, i.e. you, believe it or not, Bodil, that can help and assist with that. That's too much money, too much investment. That can come at a later time.
Yeah. If we use AWS, Amazon Web Service, are we already compliant?
I don't know. I'm just going to smile at this one. Okay, I'm going to smile. And I think we know the answer to this, but no. Full stop.
Can we just download some templates and be done?
Wow, no. Really not. No. To answer that one, ISO 27001 is not a templated system. It's a live and livable management system.
Okay, these are the easy questions. Will ISO kill our startup agility?
Great. I love this one. No. ISO is not about red tape. It's not about hurdles. It's about you bending around an ISO bending around the organization, if that makes sense. The majority of organizations have 80% of the stuff ready to go. The art is gluing it together.
Yeah. Nice. Should we hide anything that isn't perfect when the auditor comes?
Yeah, unless you've got a big carpet, Bodil, then maybe. But no. What's key is about is it's building trust and rapport with the auditor. And the more open you are with them, the more value they can add to your business to help to improve your management system.
Yeah, I think that last one is actually a really important point.
Totally.
This is all we had.
Amazing. Well, Bodil,
of questions
that was,
prepared.
yeah, it was incredible. I mean, we're going to check if there's any questions in the group. I know it was informal. I hope it was. Let me just go onto the chat. Just give me a second. Sean added meeting notes. So, Eric, this is the question, Bodil. It is my understanding that there are many overlaps between 27001 and CMMC. Are there known conflicts between the two sets of requirements? And Heinz has put same question as last post. So are you okay with the CMMC, Bodil?
I think it's a maturity model, isn't it? I'm not very familiar with it.
I have to be honest myself. It's I don't know if it's an abbreviation. I don't know if someone can. There's any chance that anyone can put in the chat and obviously a bit more context of what that is. That'd be grand, and I can work off that. Thank you. Here we go. Amazing.
Yeah.
So, Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification is a US Department of Defense DoD program. So, Heinz, honest question to this. I'm unsure. Therefore, what I'm going to do after this is direct you and Eric yourself direct when I go to the accreditation manager to get the answer to that. So, Bodil, have you got any insight on that, or I'm guessing not at the moment. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Not any detailed insight. Just that I know it's used in a completely different way. In my experience, it's to gauge your maturity, where the ISO standard is about creating the ISMS. But I'm not gonna claim I'm an expert at all.
Yeah, so I'm gonna
no direct conflicts for sure, because I know people using both together.
Yeah, well, I will definitely get the answer to that. And if it's an interest to the whole of the group, I'll send that over to everyone who's attended the webinar and get the answer out. No issue at all. So apologies on that one. Therefore, I just want to. Lisa says, Bodil, I believe you're thinking of CMMI.
Oh, okay. So it's not the same one. Yeah.
Not the same one, but I'll get to the bottom of that. No issue at all. I don't want to give any good information on what I don't know. Andy Mackay, in terms of needing 3 months since the start of documentation, do we need to be providing documentation, evidencing implementation meetings over those 3 months? So, Andy, I think what you're asking there is a case of is about this need of what 3 months means and everything done meeting over the last 2 months. So, if you're on about regards to meetings, I'm guessing you're referring to the internal audits and management reviews. So, if you've just started your management system 27001 and you're up to 3 months of evidence and obviously you're ready to book your audit in, you will need to have your internal audits done and your management review done within that period, protracting towards the 12 months. So to bring that round, Andy, if we're referring to here when we mean implementing meetings, apologies, and we turn into internal audit management review, yes, is the answer to the question. You will need to have them in place ready for when we come to do stage 1. So does mind if you've done 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, 7 months, and you bring us in, you'll need a full internal audit carried out and a full management review, because that will class as that first 12 months initial window, which is mandatory within the documentation, the standard. Hicks, is your pending letter of certification issued before stage 1? Correct, sir. So what happens as a case of is we would formally raise a quote, and what you would have then is something called a registration agreement. And how the commercials work at PJR are really simple. So this is an important question for all the group. You are never tied into a 3-year window. That is really important. Okay, we have to give you a 3-year projection because that's what the accreditation says we have to do. And you have a 3-year window on your certificate. We invoice following each audit. So that's important for everyone to know, following. In order to get the pending letter of certification, and more importantly, get your audit dates booked in, we request a 20% deposit, which is credited towards your stage 2 audit of this year. So, answer your question, yes, it's issued on the sign of contract. The minute you get that letter, you're good to go way before your stage 1 dates. So I hope that answers your question. Tammy Carr, amazing. Tammy is my colleague in the States. I don't know if anyone can see in the chat there. Therefore, Tammy's put there are no direct conflicts between ISO 27001 and CMMC. Many of the causes apply directly. I'll try to get some more information on this, folks, to give a bit more meat on the bones, as we say in the UK, for that. But Tammy, superstar. Bodil?
Yeah, really nice that you could help with that right in the call, Tammy. I just want to add, like, as a general, I've seen many different security frameworks, and they tend to overlap like 80%. So they have different structures of what they call things and controls, requirements, directives, all of that. But in the end, it's all, it's common sense, most of what we do, right? So what you need to implement will be the same, but then maybe you need to tie it up in different, to different requirements and different letters and numbers, if that makes sense.
Agreed. So, agreed. That's all. Are there any more questions, folks? We'll just give it a quick another 10 seconds to see if there's any more. Just while we're doing that, I think what's important is obviously following this webinar, you'll get this sent direct to you, so you've missed nothing. You'll also obviously get Bodil's contacts, myself, etc., to see if there's any further questions. In life, I think we all know the minute that you go, there's a question that's a burning desire that you said you wish you would have asked. And, we can answer it from there. But I think there's no more at the minute. And for me, Bodil, I'd like to just say thank you to you for being incredible, lighting up the room, and more importantly, leading on this. And as I said, so from me, thank you. But if you want to say goodbye and thank you yourself, that'll be grand.
Well, I just would say this hour flew by really quick. It was really interesting to talk to you, and also I heard some new things I had not heard before about how a company can double in size, for example, after certification. So super interesting, and thank you so much for having me here. And I look forward to next time. We're gonna work together.
They will 100% be here next time, without a doubt. As I said, on behalf of Perry Johnson's, I appreciate that you've dialed in today. Thanks for your time. It's precious. And more importantly, have an incredible afternoon. Have an incredible weekend. And we'll be in touch with regards to this recorded webinar and any notes that need to be added. So from across the pond, take care. Keep smiling, and I'll see you soon.
Take care. And thanks to the audience and questions as well. Bye-bye.